Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about the personal story or narrative and the essay separately so you can try and get a better feel for what you want to do and how you're going to write it. Like I said, it may start out as a story and turn into an essay. It may start out as an essay and turn into a story. You never know. The thing is to pay attention to Hemingway here. Write one true sentence. I'm not a huge fan of Hemingway, only because I really haven't read a lot of his work. I know his reputation. I know about him. This comes from Creative Voices, and I think it's a really good quote that we should all pay attention to. Write your truest sentence, if you can just write one true sentence to start with. Okay, first, let's begin with definitions. A story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. That means that if you're writing just about one event that happened, maybe you just have a story to write, and that'll be it. You'll be done and over with. Most of us have a whole lot more than that. And that's more along the lines of what a narrative is. And I'm going to read this for you. It's a quote from Jeffrey Halverson. A narrative, on the other hand, describes a system of stories taken all together, paint a larger narrative with a beginning, a middle, but not an end. So you don't have to have an end. I don't have an end myself. I'm writing narratives, which sometimes fall into a little bit of a story mode and a lot of times also fall into an essay mode. So as you go through narrative processing, you may be writing a series of different things, whether they're stories, whether they're narratives, and then you can start to experiment with other things like documentary poetry, things of that nature. But we're really not going to get into that. I'm just trying to define a story and a narrative, and then later on we'll get into the essay as well. So you've got your tools. We've gone through all of that, your setting, your voice, your character or characters. You have to look at really now and plan out a little bit if it's going to be a story, a narrative, or an essay. And the story is probably not going to be as common as a lot of people think. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because it's more used in fiction than nonfiction. Nonfiction is normally more along the narrative lines or the essay lines, or a series of essays or a series of narratives. It's usually not a series of stories. But you should know the elements of a story, which is the beginning, the middle, and the end, the challenge, the call to action, and then the conclusion. That's really what makes up a story. And you may not feel that way about yours, and you shouldn't force yourself into a box. I say to write your narrative more than your story. Narrate your experience for yourself and possibly for an audience if that's what you're going for. A personal narrative is really a story about a real life experience, told mostly from the first person perspective, although you can choose the second person or the third person if that's what you want to do. It reflects on the event's significance and the lessons learned or the injuries that came from it and growing beyond it. Sometimes what's called post-traumatic growth is something that we can use the narrative for to grow beyond the story. It's a form of creative nonfiction, and it uses storytelling techniques to convey personal thoughts, feelings, and even insights. And it often focuses on a specific event or moment that shaped who you are, what you are, where you are, or is still continuing to affect you. So it's best when constructing a personal narrative to use these elements over here, um, because you sort of want to create an introduction and then you want to build the story, which is a rising action, and then a climax of that action, and then a conclusion. That doesn't mean that the story ends or the narrative ends. It means the conclusion may be that you were removed from the field for being injured, or you took your buddy off the field for being injured, or the mission is over and you're out doing the body count or whatever else you're doing to wrap up. That may be the only conclusion that you have. But there's a structure to it, and it's good to follow the structure. I'm going to throw some of these slides at you just to reiterate that you don't have to stress or panic over what you're doing. You're visiting an injury that you already have, most likely, and that you've been dealing with. But now you're treating it with a different medicine. The pain is still going to be there no matter what medicine you use. So just be careful, watch over yourself, and take your time. And if you have to step away, step away. So I'm not going to do any modeling in these modules because now we're getting into longer texts. The other stuff was just short examples in the other modules. Included with this module is one of my first personal narratives, which goes through the events where I pull in text from Signal and things to that nature, and also do some character development within it. It's one of my stronger ones, in my personal opinion. I don't know what other people think. But it's also a good example for you on how to run through that. And I'll probably provide another one down the road as well, which is similar in context because I found that format really worked and really resonated a lot with a lot of veterans.